What if I told you there's a plant you can grow in poor soil, without pesticides, without industrial fertilizer, and harvest in a single season? A plant that produces more complete protein per hectare than beef cattle, while consuming a fraction of the water, land, and energy. What if I told you this same plant feeds humans, livestock, and soil simultaneously, restoring farmland instead of depleting it? Yet growing it can still result in criminal charges. What if I told you this plant was once considered so strategically important that governments required farmers to grow it? Navies depended on it, doctors prescribed it, and entire supply chains were built around it. And what if I told you that within a single generation, this essential crop was rebranded as a dangerous weed, stripped from textbooks, erased from agricultural policy, and pushed out of public memory? Not because it failed, but because it competed too effectively. Today, this plant is mocked, feared, or dismissed. In some countries, it is legal to import it, process it, and profit from it, but illegal for ordinary people to plant it in their own soil. That contradiction is not accidental. No society accidentally criminalizes one of its most efficient sources of nutrition and industrial utility. That requires pressure. It requires lobbying. It requires a narrative strong enough to override evidence. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what this plant is, why it was suppressed, how the story around it was engineered, and who has benefited from keeping it out of your hands. This channel exists to examine what official narratives leave out. We do not start with outrage. We start with records, agricultural data, medical journals, legislative timelines, financial incentives. We follow the money. We expose what was buried, not because it is sensational, but because it is documented. Information that challenges powerful systems does not disappear by chance. It is pushed aside, diluted, or quietly removed. If you value investigations that remain grounded in evidence, even when they challenge approved stories, supporting this channel helps keep that work visible, especially in an environment where inconvenient facts are routinely deprioritized or suppressed. The plant is industrial hemp, a non-intoxicating variety of cannabis sativa cultivated for nutrition, fiber, and ecological function. This is not a discussion about trends, politics, or recreational use. This is about documented agricultural history, nutritional science, and regulatory decisions that reshaped global food systems. Before you dismiss this, understand one critical point. What you were taught about this plant was never full account. Industrial hemp was not removed because it was dangerous. It was removed because it was too versatile, too productive, and too difficult to control through centralized markets. From a nutritional standpoint, hemp seeds are one of the most efficient plant foods ever analyzed. They contain 25 to 32 complete protein, including all 9 essential amino acids in ratios closely aligned with human requirements. Unlike beef protein, hemp protein does not carry inflammatory byproducts associated with saturated fat, heme iron overload, or cholesterol oxidation. On a per hectare basis, hemp can produce more digestible protein than cattle, without methane emissions, without deforestation, and without multi-year land commitment. Cattle require years to mature. Hemp matures in months. Hemp seeds are also rich in omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids in a near-ideal ratio, magnesium, zinc, and phosphorus for enzymatic function, iron paired with cofactors that improve utilization, arginine, supporting vascular and metabolic health beyond nutrition. Hemp fiber outperforms cotton in tensile strength, requires far less water, and regenerates soil by breaking up compaction and suppressing weeds naturally. Hemp does not rely on proprietary genetics. It does not require patented inputs. It scales cheaply and locally. That combination, nutrition, material utility, and independence, places it in direct competition with industrial agriculture, pharmaceutical supplementation, and petrochemical materials. If hemp is this productive, this nutritious, and this environmentally efficient, why was it removed, banned, and discredited? Why was it not improved, regulated intelligently, and integrated into modern systems? Why was it framed as a threat rather than a resource? To answer that, we need to step through history carefully, without shortcuts. For centuries, hemp was legal, normal, and essential. In Europe and Asia, it was a staple crop for rope, cloth, and oil. In China, hemp textiles predate recorded history. In the Americas, hemp was grown by early settlers and mandated by law in several colonies. In the 19th century, hemp extracts were listed in medical formularies across the United States and Europe. Doctors prescribed them for pain, inflammation, sleep disorders, and appetite regulation. This changed rapidly in the early 20th century. Three emerging industrial sectors face competition from hemp: timber-based paper and pulp industries, petroleum-based synthetic materials. Industrial agriculture focused on animal protein at the same time. Centralized pharmaceutical manufacturing began replacing plant-based medicine with patented compounds. Hemp was difficult to monopolize. Farmers could grow it independently. Processing could be decentralized. Profit margins favored producers, not corporations. In the 1930s, regulatory pressure increased. New laws did not ban hemp outright. They taxed, licensed, and restricted it into impracticality. The distinction between industrial hemp and psychoactive cannabis was deliberately blurred. By the mid-20th century, hemp cultivation collapsed, not from lack of value, but from regulatory suffocation. Public opinion did not turn against hemp organically. Language was manipulated. Scientific distinctions were erased. The plant was framed as a social threat rather than an agricultural one. Media repeated claims linking cannabis broadly to crime, moral decay, and instability, despite the absence of evidence connecting industrial hemp to any of those outcomes. The word hemp vanished from public discourse. A single stigmatized label replaced centuries of nuance. Fear simplified enforcement. Fear discouraged inquiry. Fear made policy reversal politically costly. This was not confusion. It was coordinated messaging aligned with economic interests. The consequences were measurable. Farmers lost access to a resilient crop. Communities dependent on diversified agriculture shifted toward monoculture and debt. Nutritional diversity narrowed. In many countries, enforcement targeted small-scale growers rather than industrial violators. Arrests, fines, and confiscations followed, not because harm was demonstrated, but because regulation demanded compliance. Meanwhile, patients lost access to plant-based nutrition and therapies that had been part of medical practice for generations. This was not an abstract policy failure. It reshaped livelihoods, diets, and health outcomes. Today, research confirms what history already suggested. Hemp protein is highly digestible. Hemp oil supports cardiovascular health. Hemp cultivation improves soil structure and reduces chemical runoff. In regions where restrictions have eased, hemp farming has not produced social collapse. It has produced jobs, crop rotation benefits, and reduced reliance on imports. The predictions used to justify suppression did not materialize. What did materialize was a renewed scramble by corporations to control hemp through licensing, processing monopolies, and genetic ownership, once prohibition softened. Industrial agriculture benefits from protein dependence on livestock and soy. Pharmaceutical companies benefit from nutrient deficiencies managed through supplements rather than food. Petrochemical industries benefit from synthetic fibers and plastics replacing natural alternatives. Change is slow because systems are built around existing capital. Admitting hemp's full potential would require restructuring supply chains, subsidies, and profit models. The incentives favor delay, not truth. This was never about safety. It was about control over food, materials, and economic dependence. You were not uninformed because you were careless. You were misinformed because complexity was removed on purpose. Once you understand that, the story changes. Do not accept this narrative at face value, including this video. Read agricultural records. Compare protein yields. Examine who funds regulatory frameworks and who profits from alternatives. Ask yourself a simple question: who loses power if ordinary people can grow one of their own most efficient resources? If you value open investigation and evidence over approved explanations, engage in the discussion. Support access to information that challenges comfortable assumptions. Truth does not announce itself loudly. It waits for people willing to look.